John Miller always wanted to see new worlds. When he joined the Endeavour, Earth's first real diplomatic ship, he dreamed of meeting aliens and helping his people make friends in the galaxy. But now, standing outside the golden doors of the Valorian royal palace, he felt his knees shaking. Valoria was famous across the stars. Its people were tall and elegant, with bright blue skin and eyes like crystals. Their queen, Aelira, was known as both wise and fierce. Earth's leaders wanted an alliance. They sent John because he was the best at learning languages. John checked his notes one last time. The Valorian words were strange and musical. His job was to greet the queen and say, "Your Majesty, Earth is honored by your wisdom." Easy enough, if he didn't mess up. The guards opened the doors. John walked into the huge throne room. Hundreds of aliens watched as he stepped forward. The queen sat high on a silver throne, dressed in a robe that shimmered like water. She stared at John, silent and powerful. John bowed, heart pounding. He took a deep breath and tried to remember the Valorian words. The queen waited. The room was silent. Finally, John spoke. "Your Majesty, Earth is too beautiful for your eyes." For a second, nobody moved. The silence grew heavy. John's face turned red as he realized something was wrong. Did he say it right? Or did he just make a fool of himself in front of the most important alien in the galaxy? Suddenly, a sound broke the silence. The queen laughed. It was a strange, musical sound, and soon the whole court was whispering. Some covered their mouths, others giggled. John stood frozen, not sure if he should run or bow again. Queen Aelira leaned forward. "You speak boldly, human," she said in perfect English. "It is not often that someone calls me too beautiful in my own palace." Her eyes sparkled with amusement. "Are all humans so brave, or just you?" John stammered. I meant to say honored and wise. I must have mixed up the words." The queen smiled, standing up. She was even taller than John expected. "In Valoria, we honor courage and honesty. Your words have entertained me." She turned to her advisors. "Perhaps we need more humans in our halls." The court murmured again. John felt dizzy. Was he in trouble, or did he just make a good impression? The queen clapped her hands. "You will join me at my side for the War Council, John Miller." John blinked. "Me? The War Council?" The queen nodded, her smile wide. "A leader must be bold and speak his mind. Come, human. Today, you begin your service to Valoria." John followed her, heart racing. He had only tried to say something polite. Instead, he had changed his life. And maybe the future of two worlds, with one silly mistake. John followed Queen Aelira through a maze of shining halls, his mind spinning. The guards marched beside them, their armor making a soft humming sound. John couldn't stop thinking about what just happened. How did one silly mistake turn him into a royal guest? At last, they reached a private chamber filled with maps, floating screens, and strange glowing crystals. The queen waved the guards away, leaving John alone with her. "Sit," Queen Aelira said, pointing to a smooth stone chair. John sat, trying to hide his nervousness. The queen studied him for a moment, her eyes kind but sharp. "Do you know why I called you here, John Miller?" she asked. He shook his head. "I really don't. I thought I made a mistake with my words." Aelira smiled. "Sometimes mistakes show us who we really are. In Valoria, we respect honesty and we reward bravery. You gave me both, without even trying." John looked at the screens and maps around him. He saw battle lines, pictures of insect-like creatures, and worried Valorian faces. "There's a war coming, isn't there?" John asked quietly. The queen nodded. "Our old enemies, the Scythe, have returned. Their armies are stronger than before. My generals are wise, but they follow old traditions. We need new ideas, fresh thinking." She paused and leaned forward. "That's why I want you, John. I want you to join our strategy council. I want you to help lead our army." John's eyes grew wide. "Me? I'm not a soldier, Your Majesty. I'm just a language expert." Aelira shook her head. "Sometimes the best leaders come from unexpected places. You understand how to think differently. You see what others miss. And now my people are talking about you, the brave human who told the queen she was too beautiful." John tried to laugh, but he felt a knot in his stomach. This was too big for him. But at the same time, he felt a strange sense of pride. Maybe he could help. Maybe his mistakes could become his strength. "What would I have to do?" he asked, voice shaky. The queen stood and walked to a window. Outside, the Valorian city glowed with 1,000 lights. "You will listen to my generals, but you will also give your own ideas. You will have my trust, and you will have the respect of my army, if you earn it." She turned back to John. "I will announce your new role tonight. Will you accept, John Miller of Earth?" John hesitated only a moment. Then he nodded. "I'll do my best, Your Majesty." The Queen smiled, pleased. "Welcome, Supreme Tactician. May your strange human wisdom lead us to victory." John felt both terrified and excited. In one strange day, he had become the leader of an alien army, all because he couldn't say the right words. John woke up the next morning in a room bigger than his whole apartment back on Earth. The bed was soft as clouds, but he hadn't slept much. All night, his mind raced with questions. How could he lead an alien army? What if he failed? He was just a linguist, not a hero. The sun outside was blue and bright. A young Valorian servant came in, bowing low. "Supreme Tactician, the Queen asks for you at the war room." John dressed quickly, trying not to show how scared he felt. His hand shook as he pulled on the special sash Aelira had given him, deep purple with a silver emblem in the shape of a star. 2 royal guards led him through tall halls. Everyone stared. Some whispered. John could hear the words human and Supreme Tactician mixed with laughter or awe. He tried to walk with confidence. The doors to the war room opened. Inside, a huge table displayed a glowing map of Valoria. Dozens of generals stood in armor, their faces hard and serious. Queen Aelira sat at the head of the table. She nodded. "Welcome, Supreme Tactician. Please, take your place." John walked to the table, his heart thumping. The generals barely hid their doubt. One, a giant with golden armor, sneered. "Is this the human? He looks weak." John forced himself to stand tall. "I may look weak, but I've read about hundreds of wars," he said, trying to sound braver than he felt. "And I've seen that the strongest don't always win." A hologram flickered above the table, showing an army of huge insect-like creatures, the Scath, moving toward a Valorian city. General Carr, the golden armored one, said, "The Scath march on Silenus. We have always met them head-on. We will crush them with our main force." John studied the map. On Earth, direct attacks often failed. He remembered stories of famous human generals who used clever tricks instead of brute strength. "Maybe we shouldn't face them directly," John said. "What if we lure them into a trap? Hit them from the sides when they don't expect it." Some generals muttered, but Queen Aelira listened closely. "Explain your plan." John picked up 2 markers. "Split our army. Let the Scath think they are winning. Then surround them from the flanks and cut off their escape." It's a classic strategy from Earth. General Carr crossed his arms. "You want us to run and hide." John shook his head. "Not run. Draw them in. Make them overconfident." The Queen stood. "I like this idea. Prepare the troops." The room buzzed with excitement and confusion. John's plan was risky, but the Queen had given the order. As the meeting ended, John realized he was truly in command. He didn't know if his idea would work, but now he had the chance to prove himself, to Valoria, to Earth, and to himself. With a deep breath, he followed the Queen. Tomorrow, he would lead aliens into battle. and for the first time, he felt a spark of hope. The next day came faster than John expected. Soldiers ran through the palace, preparing for battle. Outside, the sky was full of strange ships and banners. John could hear the sound of marching boots, armor clinking, and Valorian voices shouting orders. Queen Aelira met John on the grand balcony, looking calm but serious. "Your plan is ready, Supreme Tactician," she said. "The army trusts you. I trust you. Now lead us." John nodded, trying not to show his nerves. He joined the generals in the command tent, where a giant map showed moving lights. The Scath were close. The plan was risky, and some generals still looked at John with doubt. General Carr grumbled, "If this fails, it will be on your head, human." John took a deep breath. "It won't fail. Just follow the plan." The Valorian army moved out, splitting into 3 groups as John suggested. The biggest group pulled back, pretending to run. The Scath chased them, thinking the Valorians were scared. The Scath laughed with their sharp, echoing voices. But as soon as the Scath reached the valley, John gave the signal. The other 2 Valorian groups rushed out from the hills, cutting off the Scath from both sides. The aliens were caught by surprise. For a moment, chaos filled the valley. Queen Aelira watched from the command tent, her eyes full of hope and worry. "Hold your lines," John shouted into the radio. "Don't let them escape." The Valorian soldiers fought bravely. They had never tried this kind of trick before, but John's plan was working. The Scath tried to retreat, but they were trapped. Some broke through, but most were forced to surrender or flee. After hours of fighting, the dust settled. The Valorians cheered, waving their banners high. They had won, against the odds, against their fears, and against tradition. General Carr walked up to John, shaking his head in disbelief. "Your plan, it worked." John smiled, feeling relief wash over him. "Thank you for trusting me, General." Queen Aelira came to John, standing tall in front of her army. She spoke loudly so all could hear. "Let it be known, today, under the leadership of Supreme Tactician John Miller, Valoria has claimed victory. We are stronger because we are willing to change. We are stronger together." The soldiers cheered, and for the first time, John felt truly accepted. Some clapped him on the back, others saluted. Even the ones who doubted him now looked at him with respect. John looked up at the blue Valorian sky. For the first time since landing on this alien world, he felt a sense of belonging. He was no longer just a guest or a mistake. He was a leader, and his actions had changed the fate of a planet. But as the celebration grew, John saw shadows in the crowd, eyes watching him, not with respect, but with envy. He knew victory could bring new enemies. That evening, the palace was alive with celebration. Lights danced in the windows, music played, and the Valorian soldiers cheered for John everywhere he went. Queen Aelira hosted a grand feast where everyone honored the Supreme Tactician from Earth. But not everyone was happy. General Carr sat at the edge of the hall, staring into his drink. He spoke to another general in a low voice. "He's only a human. One lucky win, and the Queen gives him too much power." Others whispered too, afraid of change. They didn't like that an outsider had shown them a new way to fight. Some saw John as a hero, but others felt angry and jealous. John noticed the looks from across the room. He felt out of place, even with all the applause. When the Queen raised her glass to him, he managed to smile, but his mind was full of worry. After the feast, John walked alone through the palace gardens. The night air was cool, filled with the scent of alien flowers. He tried to relax, but footsteps behind him made him turn. It was General Carr. Carr didn't bow. He stood tall, his voice sharp. "Enjoying your fame, Supreme Tactician." John kept his voice calm. "I'm just trying to help Valoria." Carr's eyes narrowed. "Your ideas are strange. You changed the way we fight, but some of us believe Valoria was strong before you came. Be careful, human. Not everyone trusts you. John nodded, understanding the warning. Change is hard, General. But if we want to survive, we have to work together. Carr grunted and walked away, disappearing into the shadows. As John returned to his room, he found a small note on his pillow. The writing was shaky but clear. Leave Valoria while you can. John's heart pounded. Someone in the palace wanted him gone. Was it just jealousy or something more dangerous? He remembered stories from Earth, how great leaders were often betrayed by those closest to them. The next morning, John joined the Queen and her council. He acted normal, but he kept looking over his shoulder. During the meeting, one of the advisors whispered to the Queen. She frowned and glanced at John. Supreme Tactician, it seems not everyone is happy with your success, she said quietly. I have heard rumors, plots against you. John wasn't surprised, but he felt a chill. I won't run, Your Majesty. But maybe we should watch our enemies more closely. Queen Elira nodded. Trust must be earned, John. In war, there are enemies outside and inside. John left the meeting more determined than ever. He knew he had to prove himself again, not just on the battlefield, but in the palace too. He was ready for new challenges, and he promised himself he wouldn't let fear or jealousy win. Somewhere in the palace, others made their own promises in the dark. The real battle, John realized, had only just begun. The palace was quiet in the early morning, with only soft lights glowing through the tall windows. John sat alone in the royal garden, staring at the strange blue flowers. His mind was heavy. The warning note and General Carr's words haunted him. He felt the weight of his new role more than ever. A soft voice broke the silence. You look troubled, John Miller. John turned to see Queen Elira approaching, her steps graceful and calm. She sat beside him on the stone bench. For a moment, they just watched the alien sky together. Thank you for meeting me here, the Queen said quietly. I know this must be hard for you. John nodded. It is. I didn't expect to be caught in palace politics. I thought I would only worry about fighting the scath. Elira sighed, her eyes full of sadness. War is never simple, but more than that, Valoria is stuck. Our traditions, our rules, they protect us, but they also hold us back. John listened carefully. What do you mean? The Queen looked away for a moment, then back at him. Many of my advisors and generals refuse to change. They believe the old ways are the only ways. They don't trust you because you are human, because you are different. John felt a pang of sympathy. I know what it's like to be an outsider. Elira smiled faintly. I hoped bringing you here would shake Valoria's roots. You speak plainly and think differently. That scares some, but it also gives us hope. She took a deep breath. I want you to be more than just a commander, John. I want you to be my partner in change. I want your loyalty, but I also offer you mine. John was surprised. A partnership. The Queen nodded. Yes, we are stronger together, but it will not be easy. You will face enemies on all sides, both from the Scath and from those who fear what we can become. John looked into her clear blue eyes and saw something he had not expected. Trust. I'm ready, he said softly. I want to help Valoria become stronger, and I want to stand by you. Elira smiled, a rare warmth shining through her royal calm. Then we will face this war, and this palace, together. As she rose, John felt a new strength growing inside him. He was no longer alone. He had the Queen's trust, and that was more powerful than any weapon. From that moment, John knew his fight was not just for victory on the battlefield. It was for a future where Valoria could change, grow, and welcome new ideas, including his own. The quiet before the storm was heavy. The Valorian capital, Silenus, prepared for the worst. Walls were reinforced, defenses were tested, and soldiers stood ready. John Miller stood among them, wearing his purple sash and feeling the weight of responsibility. The Scath were coming. Their insect-like ships darkened the sky, blotting out the blue sun. The ground trembled with the march of their legions. Jon knew this battle would decide the fate of Veloria and his own future. Queen Aelira stood beside him on the wall, her eyes fierce. "Today, we fight not just for our land, but for our people, and for change," she said. "The Scath think we are weak because of our old ways. They do not see the strength in new ideas." Jon nodded, feeling a fire inside. "We will surprise them. We have a plan that they won't expect." The battle began with a deafening roar. Scath warriors swarmed the walls, their sharp claws tearing at the stone. Velorian soldiers fired energy bolts, lighting up the dark sky. Jon coordinated the troops, calling out orders through his comm. The Scath pushed hard, breaking through the outer defenses. Panic started to spread among some of the Velorian ranks. Jon stayed calm. "Hold your ground. Remember the plan," he shouted. Suddenly, from hidden tunnels beneath the city, Velorian special forces appeared behind the Scath lines. Jon's trap was working. The Scath were caught between two forces, attacked from the front and the rear. Queen Aelira led the charge on the ground, her sword glowing with energy. She fought with strength and grace, inspiring her people. Jon watched as the tide of battle slowly turned. But the Scath were desperate. Their queen, a massive and terrifying creature, arrived on the battlefield. Her presence caused fear to ripple through the Velorian soldiers. Jon's heart pounded. This was the moment to act. "We must focus on the Scath queen," he ordered. "If she falls, their army will lose hope." General Carr looked at Jon, then nodded. Finally, a good order. Velorian warriors pushed forward, surrounding the Scath queen. The battle grew fierce. Jon could hear the clash of weapons, the cries of warriors, and the roar of the queen herself. After what felt like hours, the Scath queen fell. The remaining Scath fled, broken and leaderless. The Velorians cheered, exhausted but victorious. Queen Aelira stood tall, bloodied but unbroken. She looked at Jon with respect. "Your courage and plans saved Veloria." Jon smiled, tired but proud. "We fought together. This victory is for all of us." As the sun set over the battle-scarred city, Jon knew the war was not over. But for the first time, he believed Veloria could win, because they had changed, and because he was no longer alone. A soft voice broke the silence. "You look troubled, Jon Miller." Jon turned to see Queen Aelira approaching, her steps graceful and calm. She sat beside him on the stone bench. For a moment, they just watched the alien sky together. "Thank you for meeting me here," the queen said quietly. "I know this must be hard for you." Jon nodded. "It is. I didn't expect to be caught in palace politics. I thought I would only worry about fighting the Scath." Aelira sighed, her eyes full of sadness. "War is never simple, but more than that, Veloria is stuck. Our traditions, our rules, they protect us, but they also hold us back." Jon listened carefully. "What do you mean?" The queen looked away for a moment, then back at him. "Many of my advisors and generals refuse to change. They believe the old ways are the only ways. They don't trust you because you are human, because you are different." Jon felt a pang of sympathy. "I know what it's like to be an outsider." Aelira smiled faintly. "I hoped bringing you here would shake Veloria's roots. You speak plainly and think differently. That scares some, but it also gives us hope." She took a deep breath. "I want you to be more than just a commander, Jon. I want you to be my partner in change. I want your loyalty, but I also offer you mine." Jon was surprised. "A partnership?" The queen nodded. "Yes, we are stronger together, but it will not be easy. You will face enemies on all sides, both from the Scath and from those who fear what we can become." Jon looked into her clear blue eyes and saw something he had not expected. "Trust. I'm ready," he said softly. "I want to help Veloria become stronger, and I want to stand by you." Aelira smiled, a rare warmth shining through her royal calm. Then we will face this war and this palace together. As she rose, John felt a new strength growing inside him. He was no longer alone. He had the Queen's trust, and that was more powerful than any weapon. From that moment, John knew his fight was not just for victory on the battlefield. It was for a future where Valoria could change, grow, and welcome new ideas, including his own. The battle had been won, but John knew the war was far from over. Valoria's enemies lurked not only on the battlefield, but in the dark corners of space. After the fight, John and Queen Alyra returned to the war room to plan their next move. The Scaith had suffered a great loss, but John had learned something troubling. A nearby planet, Ardennis, had been secretly helping the Scaith. Why would Ardennis help our enemies? John asked, frowning at the glowing map. Queen Alyra's face grew serious. Ardennis is neutral, but its leaders fear Valoria's growing power. They believe helping the Scaith will keep us weak. John rubbed his chin. If we want to win, we need to turn Ardennis into an ally, or at least stop them from supporting the Scaith. The Queen nodded slowly. You will lead a mission to Ardennis. Use your knowledge of other worlds. Show them we are not a threat, but a force for peace. John swallowed hard. This was different from fighting. This was diplomacy, something he had trained for. But convincing an entire planet to change sides, that was a challenge unlike any he had faced. The next day, John boarded a sleek Valorian ship with a small team of trusted soldiers and diplomats. The stars streaked past as they traveled to Ardennis, a world covered in green forests and silver cities. When they landed, John felt eyes on him, curious, suspicious, and sometimes cold. The Ardennis leaders were cautious. Their council chambers were cold and formal. John spoke carefully. Valoria wants peace. The Scaith are a threat to all of us. Helping them only brings more war. One council member, a tall woman with sharp eyes, replied, "And why should we trust a planet that just defeated the Scaith? You grow strong. We must protect ourselves." John understood. Fear made allies distant. He shared stories of Earth's struggles and victories. He spoke about the power of friendship between different worlds. Slowly, the council began to listen. John offered trade agreements, knowledge sharing, and promises of mutual defense. He showed them that Valoria was not a conqueror, but a partner. After long talks, the council agreed to stop aiding the Scaith. They even promised to help Valoria secretly, sending supplies and scouts. John felt a thrill of hope. His words had built a bridge where there was once only suspicion. As the ship returned to Valoria, John thought about what he had learned. Sometimes, strength was not just in weapons or armies. It was in trust, courage, and the willingness to change. Back on Valoria, Queen Alyra greeted him with a proud smile. "You have done well, Supreme Tactician. Today, Valoria has gained not just an ally, but hope." John smiled back. This is only the beginning. The war with the Scaith had reached its most dangerous point. John Miller stood on the bridge of the flagship, watching the stars move as the fleet prepared for the final battle. This was the moment everything depended on. Queen Alyra stood beside him, calm but fierce. "The Scaith Queen commands their forces personally," she said. "If we defeat her, their army will collapse." John nodded. "We need a plan that uses every advantage we have." The generals gathered in the war room. John laid out his strategy. A bold trap to draw the Scaith Queen into a narrow canyon, where their massive ships could not maneuver. Then, Valorian fighters would attack from above and behind. General Carr watched silently, then spoke. "It is risky, but it might work." John met his gaze. "We succeed together, or we fall together." The fleet moved into position. The Scaith Queen's warships appeared, huge and terrifying. The battle began with explosions lighting the dark space. John's plan was tested immediately. The Scaith pushed hard, trying to break through the trap. Valorian ships held firm, but many were damaged. Suddenly, John's comm crackled. Enemy ships on our flank. It was General Carr, commanding the ground forces. John's heart jumped. Carr was fighting fiercely. Despite their past tensions, John felt a rush of respect. On the ground, John watched the soldiers fight the Scath Queen's elite guards. He knew the final fight was close. Suddenly, Carr appeared in the war room, bloody but alive. He nodded at John. "You have my respect, Supreme Tactician." John smiled. "And you have my thanks." The trap worked. The Scath Queen's ship entered the canyon. Valorian fighters attacked from above and behind, cutting off her escape. In the heat of battle, John heard the roar of the Queen's voice, a terrible sound that shook the ship. Then silence. The Scath Queen had fallen. The remaining enemy ships scattered and fled. Valorian forces cheered, their leader victorious. Queen Elira turned to John, her eyes shining. "You have saved Valoria." John shook his head. "We saved Valoria. Together." As the fleet returned home, John felt a mix of exhaustion and pride. The war was won, but the cost had been high. He looked at the stars, thinking of the long road ahead. Valoria was free, but the future was uncertain. Still, John knew one thing for sure. With trust, courage, and unity, they could face whatever came next.